So whether or not that issue is something that an undecided voter thinks, okay, I get that, I agree, I disagree, or if it's not important, they might go to the next issue, whether it's the economy and what they talk about at their kitchen table in terms of the price of groceries and what their jobs are and those sorts of things. Those are issues that maybe at the kitchen table will be something they talk about. It's really hard at this point because they haven't made up their minds to say what issue is going to trip their trigger. Is it the ones they hear about, or is it something else about the candidate's character, maybe the way they behave in the debate? And this was a very aggressive debate. I think both candidates made it a point to go after the other candidate on a number of issues, and maybe that is something that undecided voters are looking to see. What else about those candidates haven't they seen in events and rallies and commercials?
Brandon, we've spoken about the change in voter patterns we've seen across those WOW counties, Waukesha, Ozaukee, and Washington following the August primary. Exit polling shows Harris leading Trump in those suburbs by 9 percentage points. Could this affect those down-ticket races across the state for Republicans counting on those districts?
It's a great question because I think in this election, you're going to see a separation from the top of the ticket to the bottom of the ticket. And at the top of the ticket, that's what's going on. People are paying attention to the presidential race, the U.S. Senate race, and when they get down to the bottom of the ticket, they're going in to vote for their state representative or their state senator, or maybe even Congress. They may not be as familiar with those campaigns and the candidates' positions. So the challenge for those down ballot races is to be able to reach out, and that's where local candidates can shine. They can go to the doors. They can knock, they've got a smaller constituency to reach. And so you see a lot of volunteer involvement. You see a lot of candidates out there on the stump, so to speak. And sure, they run commercials as they can, but that sort of infrastructure from campaigns is really important. Question now is, will the top of the ticket, the presidential race and the U.S. Senate race, along with their respective political parties, have the infrastructure in place to identify and turn out their voters? Because, as you said, we know from polling in WOW counties across the state, this is a maybe 10,000 votes separate the two candidates.
I want to talk a little bit about the different groups of voters that are going to be critical to winning Wisconsin. Brandon, this week we are focusing on Black voters, and we've since seen a shift in both Black and Hispanic voters here in Wisconsin, specifically planning to vote Republican in this election, which is different from voting patterns we've seen in previous elections, up from 6% in 2020 to 20% this election cycle. What impact does that have here in a state like Wisconsin that was decided by such close margins?
Dramatic. I think that's the word that you have to focus on, because if you're just talking small numbers, knowing that it's very small margins could change the race to who wins. When you're talking about larger voting blocks, Black men, boys under 30, the younger groups that are targeting, whether it's Republican women in the WOW counties who may be disenfranchised, those sorts of things, those are bigger groups that as a demographic block could move. So campaigns, whether it's a top of the ticket presidential, are looking to focus on that. They may direct some messages. Vice President Harris has talked about creating funds for Black entrepreneurs and starting businesses, as part of her plan. Trump is reaching out on crime and other issues. So you see these targeted messages trying to say, what can we do to reach these demographics, when in many cases we know from past elections there wasn't that connection. So this is a little new in Wisconsin in that you have some changes in typical demographic groups that voted one way or another. Same with union members. That too is another change in what we're seeing in Wisconsin. So, this election really is going to be much different from any other one I think we've had. It'll be close like others, but how the candidates get there, whoever wins, may have a little bit different path than what we've seen before.
Brandon Scholz, retired Republican political strategist. Brandon, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.